Hey, it's Peter Reed Miller from On Sports Photography with Peter Reed Miller. Today we're going to do a Q&A. Some of the questions that have come up, some of them that maybe you haven't thought to ask, but maybe you will. If you have other questions, please put them in the comments, and we will do this show accordingly in the future with your new questions. People often ask me, should they shoot RAW or JPEG? Now, for 39 years at Sports Illustrated, I shot both. Well, no, that's wrong, because I shot film for 20 of those years. So, but when we did shoot digital at Sports Illustrated, we shot RAW and JPEG. That way, the editors had a JPEG to look at quickly for an edit, but every image that went in Sports Illustrated was processed from a RAW file. There's so much more information in a RAW file. That is the file that the camera creates. A JPEG is then modified to be a smaller, more compact file, and you lose stuff. The RAW file is your negative. The JPEG is your print. RAW takes up a lot more room on your hard disks. Most cameras, it causes them to hit their buffer faster, maybe shoot a little slower, but honestly, at the end of the day, if you really care about an image, you really want to shoot it in RAW. There is a school of thought that believes that a JPEG is inherently easier to work with in terms of noise reduction. Because when you go with a RAW file, you're testing your skill level in Lightroom or Photoshop. But if you have, for example, a Canon, they have an excellent low light processing of their own that they do in camera for every JPEG. And for some uses, if you're shooting 2,000 images you have to deliver to a client, you're not going to be able to open them all up in RAW and fix them. So if you can get what you need out of a JPEG, there's certainly no reason not to use it. People ask me probably more than anything else, except for whether I did the swimsuit issue. No, I didn't. Ask me about focus modes for the Canon AF. Now, there are 6 modes. I primarily only use the first 4, 1 through 4. 5 and 6 involve some complicated stuff that I don't understand. So I use 1 through 4. 1, if there was only 1 on a Canon, you'd be fine. You'd be great. You wouldn't know any different. It's good for everything, and if you don't want to make the choice, leave it in 1. 2 is interesting. 2 tends to stay on the subject a little bit longer. Now, this is good sometimes. For example, if I'm on a quarterback and he's rolling out and he cuts behind a lineman, it'll still pick him up on the other side. It won't lose him and go off somewhere. The downside of that is if he throws to a wide receiver and I'm going like this to try and get the receiver, it won't grab as quickly as it might in another mode. So that's kind of the yin and yang of mode 2. Mode 3, I find, grabs very quickly but doesn't stick. And when I'm shooting sports, yes, I want to grab that wide receiver, but I want more in that first frame. And I have a lot of problems with 3 for that. So I really don't use it. Number 4, for whatever reason, is kind of Mr. In-Between. I use it a lot. It seems to do an adequate job. It seems to balance all the factors that I've discussed in terms of holding on to subjects for a certain amount of time, but still being able to grab subjects quickly when you change your focal point. So I would say everyone's got a different preference, but if it was me and it held me to one, I would say it would be mode 4. People have asked me if there's such a thing as a perfectly framed photo when shot. Hard question, very hard question. I would say that landscape, portraiture, you can get your framing pretty damn the way you want it, pretty nice. But in sports, you got two choices: go tight and cut off a limb, or stay wide and crop. I mean, that's sort of an exaggeration, but my friend and mentor, Steve Fine, former DOP at SI, has said many a time, there is no sports photograph that will not benefit from cropping. Another thing he says, and we all try and live by, is you don't cut off arms, legs, pieces of heads, things like that. So you've got to back off a little bit, even with your 400 millimeter lens, as to not get super tight, but you want to stay, you want to have a little bit of room to kind of crop it down. So I think that in sports, there's no such thing as a perfectly framed photo in camera. Possibly in other disciplines there is. Following up on the framing, is there a correct aspect ratio? I don't really think so. I mean, I know that a lot of people who shoot for clients have to fit certain templates and certain sizes and certain web things, but I feel that I like to see a photo go where it's going to go, where it's naturally going to go. I have a picture of Michael Phelps shot from, he's in a practice swimming pool. He's practicing his backstroke. I'm up on the 10-meter platform shooting down, and I have printed that picture 6 feet long and about 24 inches wide, and it looks great. It looks great. It's a piece of art. It's the way he looked. It's him down with the water. It's all kind of artsy-fartsy and all that. Super, super thin pictures and, odd-shaped pictures, not my bag. But I think that, I think a photo has a natural aspect ratio. And if you can, you should let it find that natural aspect ratio. You might be asking yourself, why am I being shot in front of a white wall? I think this leads us to the topic of backgrounds in general. The white wall is very clean. It's absolutely clean. There's no distractions. I stand out. You focus on me, which is what I want. In sports, backgrounds can be a real challenge, especially in youth sports and high school sports, where you have cars and fences and pop-ups and moms and dads and lawn chairs, etc., etc. You really have to work at it. But I think that in almost every situation like that I've been in, there is a spot you can find that's a good or at least better background. And I think that's crucial. The famous, great, wonderful sports photographer Walter Yost was once asked what made his pictures so great. And he said, I always have good backgrounds. Following up on the backgrounds in sports, a couple of things you can do. One is get low. Get as low as you can. Now, if you're shooting youth sports, you should be low anyway, because you need to see the little guys and girls' faces. And if you're standing at 5'10" or 6 feet and they're at 4 feet, you're looking down on them. So you want to get low anyway, but this is also going to give you help with the background. Another thing to consider, where you might normally think I want to shoot with the sun right in their face, shoot them backlit. Shoot them backlit. A lot of times then the background will be darker. They'll have a nice rim of sunlight on them, and it'll change the whole ratio of distraction that the background would be producing. So that's something else to try. Flash with football. I say no. Very flat. Your backgrounds fall off. Cameras these days, I know high school fields are bad, I know all that, but camera these days are good enough that you can definitely get away without flash. Then you can keep your high frame rate, you're not going to blind somebody, and the pictures look so much better. I mean, the worst high ISO picture looks better to me than a low ISO on-camera flash picture at a football game. That's what I think.